Welcome everybody for joining us for our webinar, Cost-Effective Strategies for Enhancing Vocational School Air Quality. My name is Lance Campo. I'm with the Marketing Department at Clean Air Industries. And I'm going to start off the presentation by just doing a little quick rundown as to the agenda and a brief introduction to our business. If you're not familiar, there's probably a few names on our registrant list who haven't really learned too much about us. So we're going to take a brief moment to introduce you to the company, and then we're going to get to the heart of the subject matter, vocational school air quality. So we're going to be doing the overview, then we're going to talk about solutions for educational facilities and the applications. We're going to be looking at an engineering update, and as well, we're going to cover the subject of paint booth solutions from RTT, one of our special guests today. The total will be 30 minutes of presentation time and 10 minutes for the question period. You can submit your questions by chat at any time during the meeting, and we invite you to do so. Any question that requires a more protracted, detailed answer, we'd like to follow up with you offline, just for the purpose of saving time. So we're very keen to get your questions, and we're keen to answer them, but just be mindful that some of those questions might have to be done offline for that purpose. So we'll start off with a brief introduction of Clean Air Industries. It's a company with a 30-year history in air filtration and for manufacturing in the United States. And we serve all kinds of industries, be it metalworking and finishing, grinding, sanding, machine centers. All that type of work can produce a lot of dust, fumes, smoke, oil, mist, and we have a full range of products to deal with those applications. 30 years of experience and a large catalog of products to go with it, from ambient air filtration, large-scale, fully engineered systems. We have transactional equipment, turnkey systems for fume extraction. Our downdraft table here in the middle is a newer product for us, and we're excited about that. And in the lower left-hand corner, you can see the weld station, which we're going to do a deep dive on in just a moment. Clean Air Industries has 3 manufacturing facilities spread out throughout the Southeast United States, and we have a full slate of engineers in-house that can help you with a project. So for some of our distributors, if you've got some projects on the go that you need answers to, we're more than happy to help you out. And we have the horsepower in manufacturing to execute on small, medium, and large-scale projects. And Clean Air Industries is in growth mode. Over the last couple of years, we've acquired a few different brands into our catalog. Amtech needs no introduction. They've been a major player in air filtration and manufacturing for a long time, and they joined the Clean Air Industries family a couple of years ago. Fume Dog, a new emergent brand in weld fume extraction, and RTT, which I just visited their facilities in Texas last week. A large, well-run facility, and we're very happy to have them join our brand as well. They're doing mostly booth solutions and large-scale projects relating to environmental booths, paint booths, and equipment of that nature. And Clean Air Industries is in growth and investment mode. There's a lot of talk about Buy America, Build America, and we're investing in our facilities, and we're making capital expenditures on our equipment and our processes and our personnel. So there's a lot of time, energy, and money being spent to build this business to help better serve our clients and to help better serve our distributor network. And with that out of the way, I'll start to move towards what you're here to see. And the first thing I'd like to do is introduce our presentation team. Jeremy Hardy, Head of Educational Sales from Clean Air Industries. Nelson Morillon, I'm going to get that, Nelson, trust me. Educational Sales Associate and Parts and Service Manager with Clean Air Industries. They're going to be talking about weld fume extraction products and educational solutions specifically. Kyle Bjork, our engineering manager, is going to give you an update on some of the engineering tasks that he's been working with relating to educational and some of our products. And Chris Schock, our special guest from RTT Engineered Solutions. He's an RSM for the Midwest and West with RTT, and he's going to talk about paint booths and environmental booth solutions and how they could be applied in an educational environment. And with that, I'm going to switch back over here, and we're going to meet the team. Jeremy, it's all yours.
Jeremy Hardy, Head of Educational Sales, and there it is. Look at there. I've been with Clean Air for 8 years, working with educational institutions across the country. Uh, we've collaborated with well over 1,000 programs to include, to improve the air quality, ensure a safer environment for the students and instructors, which is really our primary goal, is to provide an environment where both students and instructors can be safe and have an environment where they are safe to learn and to increase their skills. And I'll let Nelson talk about himself here. So we'll go to the next slide.
Thank you, sir. So my name's Nelson Morillon. I've been with the company 12 plus years now. I've held multiple positions here from out in the warehouse, welding, you name it, I've done it. Then, done some positions here inside the admin team with purchasing, logistics, did some e-commerce filter after sales as well. So, all together, just kind of all over the place as far as the filtration side of things goes for sure.
All right. The reason that we, are really seeing a deep dive into the educational space is because, as most of you know, there's a skilled labor shortage throughout the United States. And a lot of these programs in schools, post-secondary, high schools, even starting in the middle schools now, are starting to really see the need for skilled labor and to have programs that address that. So also, we're seeing infrastructure investments in there. Advanced manufacturing and automation is another area that a lot of schools are going towards because they're seeing that out in the workspace. These schools are providing, of course, hands-on technical education and certifications for career readiness. My son actually is going into his senior year and has completed 2 pathways in career and readiness in welding and carpentry. So, these things are great programs across the country that of course we need to help stifle that shortage of skilled laborers that we have. So this is our weld station. So the weld station is kind of our bread and butter, solution for weld smoke in a welding lab. They are self-contained units. They are backdraft, which is really, in my opinion, the best kind of source capture because it takes the weld fume and smoke away from the student. So it's not blowing by their face. It's not blowing by their hood. It's actually going back and away from them. So as you can see there, we have, an integrated lights, cable, curtains, everything that you need to have this unit installed. And, once the power and air is connected to it, you push the green button and you're ready to teach and the students are ready to learn. So with this, these booths are set up, of course, for educational environments. So they support a variety of processes, stick welding, you've got shielded metal arc welding, gas metal arc welding, basically any type of welding application that is being taught in a school, they can handle. We can make them with fire suppression on them. We can, there's a lot of things that we can customize to the end user's needs. All right, this school right here is in a school in South Alabama. They had a space, but they didn't really have an idea of what they wanted to put in there. So I went down there, worked with them on the layout of the booths, developed a layout for the mechanical engineers and the architects, then worked with the architects and the mechanical engineers to make sure we had the correct power, the correct spacing in there. And so, that's another thing that we do. We just don't do, here's a product, have at it. We're in on the ground level a lot of times where we're helping design, engineer, and lay out these welding labs. And this one is in Ohio. This This originally was three different rooms, and then as you can see, it's now one big room. And same thing as I did with South Alabama job. Went up, looked at the space, talked to the mechanical engineers and the architect, worked on a plan, worked on a layout, and actually with this school helped them with providing submittals to them so they could write grants for these programs and for this equipment. So that's something we also will do is help write the submittal information, give whomever is needing it the proper packet, the proper terms, the proper usage of what's going to be going in those welding labs. All right, this was actually in a prison. So same thing. I went down and just visited the prison. They didn't keep me. So I was able to work with prison staff there and the instructors there and the facilities management people. And this one was actually funded through Florida State. So, there's a lot of options out there for, for what they're trying to do in a lot of these. This is a lower level, threat prison, obviously, is to make sure that they get, some trades so they never see them again, kind of break that generational cycle of keep coming back to jails and prisons. So these have been really effective. We actually have several, correctional institutions across the country that have our weld stations in them. And this is a school in Tennessee. Another, this one has, I believe this one has 40 booths in it. So a very large program. We work closely with, of course, the mechanical engineer and the architect on this as well. This was a brand new facility that they actually made the welding lab around the weld stations. So as you can see, the weld stations are kind of a center point in this lab. This lab is about 3 years old now, and if you go there now, it still looks just as clean as it did whenever these weld stations were first installed. I was brought into a school in North Carolina, and they were looking at, of course, obviously having a very large welding program. A few other filtration companies had spoken to them, given their proposals. And then I came in and talked to the welding chair and the mechanical team again and the architects again. And we positioned the weld station dual as, of course, a more efficient and adaptable solution for their area. And that's what they wound up going with. So this new facility, which we're going to be delivering those booths in September, will have 96 welding booths. And there's also a robotic welding lab that will have one of our Liberty units with 2 hoods over those robots that will, of course, be utilized for fume extraction. So, we can, go in, help engineer, help design, help lay out whatever program, whatever needs that you may have. And I believe it's on to Nelson.
Thank you, Jeremy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our Defender downdraft tables. So basically, yep, thank you there, Vance. So basically, we can do this in different formats. We have our standard, where you're looking on the slide, there is a 4x6. We can do it in a 4x3, 4x6, all the way up to a 4x9 configuration. It's a modular design with a quick release on the doors to simplify the filter maintenance, high capture face velocity. We have dust drawers, and we even have ports in there for any thermal events. You just stick a fire extinguisher in there, and that'll take care of any thermal event if it ever occurs, which doesn't, as far as I know, hasn't happened. Yeah, and then going into it, the CFM ranges anywhere from 4,200 CFM all the way up to 9,000 CFM. So 4,200 being on the lower end on the 4x3 Defender, and then the 4x9 would be 9,000 CFM with the 15 horsepower motor. The configuration on the motor is 5 horsepower, 10 horsepower, or 15 horsepower. What you're seeing there is ideal for like in a vocational environment. So we can do the the divider panels with the Lexan insert, how you see on the slide, and that allows a visual for the instructor without having to actually use like a face shield or anything like that. So he can basically stand on the other side of the downdraft table and see exactly what the students are doing on the other end. And then also with using that divider, you go from, say you had a 4x3. For this example, you have a 4x6. You automatically have four downdraft tables versus that one. So you divide the working compartments. Moving on to the portable fume extractor here. So this is a 1200 CFM. It's comes in a 120 volt. As far as the voltage goes, this is ideal for like say you're doing manual welding processing, stick, MIG, or TIG welding. You can use this in a educational environment. Say say you have tables already in place or booths in place, and you don't want to spend all this extra money on having to run extra duct or anything to that specific welding area where you're at. You can just roll this over there. It's mobile, it's sitting on casters. You can just roll it over to wherever you're working at, and put it in place, plug it up, and hit the green button, and you're ready to start. You can strike an arc, and it'll start taking all that smoke out of the kid's face wherever he's welding at. So that's a good option there if you're welding somewhere and you're limited with options as far as what you can fit in there. Yeah, so these the bolted booths, these are ideal for like high schools, trade schools, union training labs, industrial training facilities. Basically, these right here, they come in a it's a three panel configuration. So what you do is it's basically two sides in the back. It's very easy to install. It's all bolt together. We have all sorts of accessories that you can add to it. For example, what you're seeing on the slide, you see the floor mounted welding positioner. So you can position that, whether depending on what type of project we're working on, you can position that, tack something to that plate, and then have a easy access to whatever project it is if it requires that the positioner. Also, we can mount uh, fume arms to this. They vary on sizes. You can do 6-inch hoods, 8-inch hoods, and this would be for a centralized system, which we'll get into here in a minute. But I just wanted to kind of staying on the bolted booths. You can put tables in there. You can do like I said, a floor mounted positioner, overhead positioners. We have shelves. So we can basically, modify these and add any type of accessory that you can even, think of. We can basically cover it. And touching on the engineered systems, like I was saying, so this would be ideal for the bolted booths. Say you got like 10, 20, 30 booths at your facility. You can put the bolted booths in place, and then we can run an engineered ducted centralized system to hit all those booths, install the arms. um, and this can be as something as low as 2000 CFM all the way up to 65,000 CFM. So it's we can do it. It covers a wide range of CFM, and we can adjust and design a system specific to whatever design you have. Whether it's in a training facility, if it's a vocational school, a union, you name it, we basically can cover that. And touching on that, as far as the applications go, I mean, you can use these, and it's for manual welding, robotic welding, plasma cutting, laser cutting, metal grinding. We're basically the manufacturer. We can design these to whatever needs you guys have going on. And that's is there another slide there, Lance?
Now we're going to be moving on to Kyle from our engineering manager. Thank you very much, Nelson. It's all yours.
Okay, you should be seeing my screen now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Kyle Bjork. I'm the engineering manager here at Cleaner Industries. I've been with the organization since the fall of 2022, but I have over 25 years of experience in air quality and air filtration. Currently, I oversee the engineering groups in our Rome, Georgia, and Russellville, Kentucky locations. What I'm going to be talking about today is some improvements that we've made to our weld station. One of the things that we've really been trying to focus on is not only developing new products, but also doing a refresh to some of our existing products to bring out new features and improvements to our customers. So with the weld station, we just completed a project, refresh project, and really we were focusing on three different areas. We wanted to address some customer pain points. We wanted to add some new features, and we also wanted to provide for an easier installation of the systems when they get to the facilities. So one of the biggest customer pain points that we heard when we were talking to customers is that it was difficult to replace the filters. The opening was kind of small, so it was hard to finagle the filters in there. We had a T-handle filter clamp that was a little difficult to get your hand in there and tighten down. So what we did is we really opened up the filter cabinet. So it's easier to get the filters in and out. We replaced the T-handle filter clamp with a cam lock system. So it's really just a single action to lock those filters in place. And we're getting a much more reliable seal now with this system. So good improvements there. We added a new table option to the weld station. We still have our standard solid surface table, but we added an optional bar grate table. So now when you're working on the table and there's debris, it falls right through the slats so you can maintain a nice clean working space. We also added a collapsible curtain rod. So with the old design, we had a curtain rod that was shipped separately, and then it was permanently bolted onto the unit when it reached the facility. So now we have the curtain rod pre-assembled. It's retractable. We have some spring-lock buttons on the curtain rod, similar to what you'd see like on a telescoping tent pole or something. So it's easy to retract, easy to collapse. And one thing that's nice about that is especially in schools or places that have limited workspace, if you need to move some equipment or create more space for some other activity, you can easily collapse that curtain rod to gain that space, and then when you're done, you can retract it back out. So it's very easy to do that. We also added some new tool boards and accessories. So on each side of the weld station, on the inside, we have slotted tool boards. And then we have a bunch of different accessories that we've come out with. We have a welder shelf for a little portable welder if they want that underneath there. We have a large parts bin. We have a small parts bin. We have a magnetic MIG gun holder. We have some hooks. So it really allows the students and the facilities to kind of customize these the workspaces the way they want and helps to organize that. One of the improvements we made for the installation is we added some knockouts in the back of the unit. So we have two 3-inch knockouts that are 25 inches off the floor. So instead of having to cut holes to pass cords and plugs through, it's just as simple as getting rid of those knockouts, and so it's a cleaner installation. And then finally, some more aesthetic changes. We made some changes to the Clean Air logo. So it's a laser cut logo with a white background. So it's really nice looking, kind of professional. But then we also added the ability to customize the motor access panel. So if a school wants their own logo or name, we can work with you on that to customize these weld stations, which really kind of adds a nice flair for the schools. So that's it on the weld station. And then the next thing I wanted to touch on was some of our cyclones. So we have a full range of our Amtech branded cyclones, ranging from 800 CFM up to 12,500 CFM. And these cyclones are really great for separating larger size particles from an airstream. And if there's a need to filter out those finer particles, we can put an after filter on the outlet to filter out those fine particles as well. We have different size drums ranging from 20 up to 6 cubic feet, very heavy duty construction, and these can be installed indoors or outdoors. And there's a lot of different applications that we can use cyclones for. And I think for the vocational industry, woodworking is probably the primary one that you're going to see, maybe some metal grinding. But just keep in mind that there are a lot of different applications that you can use cyclones successfully with. This is our current offering. Again, we have cyclones that range from 2 horsepower, 800 CFM, all the way up to 50 horsepower, 12,500 CFM, in different power configurations. So very, very much a broad range that we offer. There's also a lot of different options that come with these cyclones, from after filters to explosion and fire mitigation. We do have wind and seismic ratings if you need that. Variable frequency drives. So a lot of different options. And if you have some requirements and you don't see the options listed, just let us know and we can work with you on that. And then finally, I wanted to show some examples of some different installations. So this first one here, this is an outdoor installation with a cyclone. You can see the collection bin underneath. And for this application, we're just exhausting the air into the atmosphere. This next one is an indoor application. Again, we have our collection drum down here for the large particles. We have an after filter that consists of 6 bag filters. And then finally, here's another outdoor installation. Here you have 3 large after filter modules. And you can also see here that we have an isolation valve so that if there were an explosion, it would prevent that from propagating back into the building. So a lot of different applications, and again, just reach out to us and we can help select what is the best for the application that you're looking at. And that's it for me. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris next. And again, Chris is our regional sales manager in the Midwest and West regions for the RTT Engineered Solutions.
Well, yeah, thanks for keying me in on this. Like Lance mentioned earlier, RTT was recently added to the Clean Air brand, and we're certainly excited for that. What's kind of fun for me is seeing some of this equipment for the first time that everybody's presenting on, and it's really, I love the story of you guys have been cutting, welding, grinding. Typically, everything needs paint, so that's kind of where I come in. It's sort of at the back end of stuff here. But with that, my story is I've been with RTT for about 14 years now. Really, the focus of my role has been to really help people in the field. Kind of like Jeremy mentioned, if you guys have a project, everything looks great on paper when it's just squares, but getting 96 stations laid out in a facility, making sure it's ducted, that's where all the fun stuff comes. And that's really where I try to come in with my counterparts. RTT has a sales support program with myself and 4 other guys that cover Canada, US, and Mexico. So if you guys have a project or a question, really, if anybody's painting, let us know and we're happy to help. To give you a quick crash course on what a spray booth does, if you're not familiar, most people will consider it a big steel container that moves air, right? It's true, but there's a little bit more to it. So typically a booth is going to confine that hazardous material. So when paint's being atomized, the VOCs are off gassing. You don't want that to migrate out in your facility, especially if you're welding or grinding nearby, because then you'll get a thermal incident. And that's my polite way of saying you don't want to start a fire. A paint booth will also help with the quality control of the overspray. So with that, if anybody has experience painting and not a booth, you'll realize that you've got to do drop curtains everywhere and cloths to protect everything around you. And with that, not only does the spray booth keep all the harmful stuff in, it keeps that dirt and debris out, especially for the woodworking applications. If there's a lot of grinding and sawdust, you'll be able to prevent that from getting in. Now, there's various elements of a booth in terms of the enclosure and airflows, but with that, it needs to be essentially a smooth, fire-rated interior surface. A booth needs air, a lot of air. Typically, a booth is going to be, not to get too technical, but designed to move 100 linear feet per minute of air throughout the entire working area, and that adds up to a lot of CFM pretty quick. Filters. Filters are what really captures that overspray. The rest of the team on here can tell you pretty much talk about filters for a couple hours here, but our equipment utilizes that as well. And any liquid spraying paint booth needs to exhaust outside. So with that, you get some duct work and some fun challenges with that. Uh, Typically, what we see in the educational sector is you're going to see a prep station. We call this a limited finishing prep station because it's got a reduced airflow. Call it for smaller paint volumes. If somebody's painting once a week or just a small widget or something, this would be a good application for that. Really, the big benefit you see here is the curtain. That curtain provides you with that flexibility to enclose that working area to again confine and prevent that contamination from getting in there. There's also variations in airflows, downdraft, side downdraft, and cross draft for that type of equipment. To get to the heart of a booth, you really have an exhaust plenum like you see here. Typically for us, I call this a catalog item, which is anything 20 wide up to 12 tall, and that's really the heart of the booth. Now you can see in this next picture, I just added two vertical walls and a ceiling. The benefit of that is you create sort of that wind tunnel atmosphere to help restrict and keep everything inside. With that, those panels can house the lighting. So really, it's a simple way to get painting with just an open front booth versus a spray room. Now, to take that one step farther, if we add filter doors, you can kind of see the modular progression here, right? It's all very basic, but by setting up those filter doors, you're preventing that contamination from getting in there, especially from rework or something like that. To go through this a little bit more, there's again, we can make anything to paint a golf ball up to a locomotive or even an airplane. With that, a cross draft is very common, a modified downdraft, a side downdraft, and a pit downdraft. Now, we call these our standard automotive booths because we do see a lot of automotive vocational schools pick this up. These again are all booths that are in our standard catalog equipment. Takes us about 2 weeks to manufacture. It's all pre-engineered. And with that, depending on your location, comes the fun part like the ductwork. Really, what I wanted to show in this picture was we can also add a heated air makeup unit. So if somebody's doing a location up in the Dakotas, maybe the Midwest, I live in Wisconsin, pretty much everything has a heated air makeup unit because again, this will require a lot of air to move. But with that, you're going to bring fresh air in from outside, filter it, heat it up, and you're good to go. So with that, that was really just a quick crash course into the RTT side of things in terms of the paint side and the equipment we can provide. And with that, I was trying to keep it short and sweet for you guys. So I'll open up the question period.
At present, we don't have any questions lined up in the queue, so I'll let our guests take a moment to think about what they just heard. Thank you very much, Chris, for your information. Remind you to use the Q&A function in your interface. Submit your questions. We're keen to hear back from our audience and to hear what projects you might be working on, maybe some of the questions that you might have. I'll start off with a question that I think a lot of our distributor partners would be interested in. And Chris, you just touched on this briefly for a moment about lead times for some of the catalog products. And I want to point to Jeremy and Nelson. We talked about the weld station, and could you give a bit of an overview on what type of time frame is involved with that product?
Yeah, currently for the weld stations, we're probably at a 16 to 18 week lead time for manufacturing. And that is after we receive the purchase order.
Okay, and how about the Defender downdraft table?
If it's on the Defender, Lance, if it's a 4x3, that's what we consider a quick ship item. So we can get that out the door. We try to push that out in a couple weeks because when I say quick ship, we basically have the bodies made up, but we still need to put the motors in them. So yeah, that'll be about 2 weeks lead time on the 4x3 Defender. Anything other than that would be 4 to 6 weeks. And then yep. And then portables and the standard 2x3 downdraft tables, we're keeping those in stock. So we're doing 24 to 48 hour shipping on those.
And I've seen facilities that use the smaller two. We didn't show the smaller 2x3 downdraft, but you can just imagine a downdraft table that's 2 feet by 3 feet. It's quite compact, running on a single phase 120-volt circuit, very portable. And you said we have quick ship for those. That's the 48 hours for those. So if you needed a series of those types of tables, very small, ready to go, that's a product that can be considered as well. Chris, could you go back a little bit about you mentioned that I think it's 20 up to 20 feet by 12. If you could just touch on some of the quoting process and the lead times involved with those products.
So going back to going back to 20 wide. So the catalog business for what we put it in what we call the silo of industrial. Industrials, that exhaust plenum, that open front, that square top enclosed. It's just a very versatile booth. Anything 20 up to 20 wide and 12 foot tall. We call that just standard. Mainly because once you start getting wider than that, you're going to need like a different support structure. It's usually a different application, and it's just pretty rare to need something that big. But with that, the good news is that if you wanted to extend that length out, we have a modular extension setup where 1 foot, 2.5, and 5 foot, we can make that thing about 2 miles in length. It doesn't actually change the airflow because it's all calculated on the face velocity. So you get a lot of flexibility with just that. So it's kind of one of those you'll plug and play, and ultimately most facilities too, again, you don't need something much wider than that. But with that, the quoting process, we try to actually quote, we pride ourselves on how fast we can quote. Our website has the ability to go through there. You fill out what you're looking for. If there's any questions, somebody like myself will call you, and we try to get it back anywhere between 4 to 8 business hours is what our turnaround time is. So time to market's always a big one.
That's an amazing achievement and something to strive for the rest of our organization, without a doubt. Jeremy, I wanted to come back to the subject of the trades. You're on the front line on a day-to-day basis, seeing the need and just how expansive education is becoming, how much investment is being made across many different states and jurisdictions. Could you just give us a sort of a preliminary of what you're seeing in the field?
Yeah, with because there is such a shortage, not only in welding, at any given time in the United States, there's 250,000 welding jobs that are available right now. And of course, they don't have the people to fill those positions. And you have a workforce in the trades that are increasingly, of course, getting to that retirement age. And as they are retiring, you do not have the people to fill those shoes. Whenever I was going through school, it was always a 4-year education. After high school, you have to get a college degree. And so in my school, they pretty much got rid of all the vocational programs. Well, what we're seeing now is a complete, turnaround from that, where they're like, hey, we have all these students that, aren't going to go to college because that's not something that they want to pursue. They're not going to be a lawyer, a dentist, an attorney. But they are extraordinarily gifted with, mechanical aptitude, or, they're just interested in, all these other avenues that are out there. And so they're starting to pump funding, not only from the federal level, but from the state level, to kind of have a ready-made workforce. And Tennessee is a good example of this, as they, over the past 10 to 12 years, have really built up their CTE programs in their high schools and in their post-secondary trade schools. And the results of that are you're seeing all these industries now moving to Tennessee. Now, Tennessee also has great tax incentives. It's a beautiful state. And it's the infrastructure is there for them, but because of their investment over these past 10 to 12 years in the trades in schools, you're seeing them bring in, your Oshkoshes, your Volvos, your Fords, all these large manufacturers, because the state of Tennessee is saying, hey, we have a ready-made workforce available to you. And that's something, of course, that is appealing to these. So now you're starting to see that trickle to other states where they're trying to, I wouldn't say copy, but trying to also do the same thing, because they have a student base there that is, for many years, was underserved.
Sounds like they want their piece of the pie too, but there's plenty to go
They
around.
do. There is, there is, and a lot of it comes down to economics. And that's a big push for the trades. A kid can go to a trade school after high school and graduate with little to zero debt and have a great career for the rest of their lives. Be able to provide for their family, be able to have a good life, and have basically a skill that they will have for the rest of their lives.
Well, it's excellent news to hear that the growth is really exploding. I have a couple of questions here that have come in now. Chris, this one's for you. Is the RTT standard booth compatible with existing equipment from a competitor?
Yeah, I just was trying to type up a quick response there. The quick answer is it's hard to say without knowing exactly what it's being compared to, but for example, we make our own lights. Our lights, we make a retro kit patch panel to put these in older booths to update that lighting. We've certainly added other panels and extensions to existing booths in the field. Again, it's not a one size fits all, but we'd be happy to work through that with you, just depending on what's looking to be added. But a majority of the time, we can come up with a solution for you. And again, a majority of what we do is custom. We just keep a large standard catalog available.
Okay, thank you. I got another question here. Not sure who this one's for, but I'll put it out there. What are the woodworking bag house limitations in terms of CFM, static pressure, volume of particulates, etc.? Would you recommend for heavy industrial use or just in the educational settings? So could we get a bit more of a broad sense of how cyclones are used in terms of CFM, static pressure, volume of particulates? How big can these things get?
Yeah, let me just share my screen here, and I'll kind of show some data. So this is performance data for our cyclones. So for the smallest one, again, we're looking at 800 to 1100 CFM. Total static pressure, again, will vary depending on the flow rate, but from 5.5 up to 9 inches. And then if we go to our largest cyclone, again, we're anywhere from 8,000 to 12,500, 10 to 19 inches of static. So that's kind of what we're working with. And again, we can pick different motors and things if we need to, but this is pretty typical of what we see. And in terms of the volume of particulates, that's really going to depend on how much you can fit in that 20 to 60 cubic foot barrel. We can have level sensors in those barrels, so we can indicate when they're full and need to be replaced. And then for the, this doesn't include the post after filters, so we'd have to look at the pressure drop of that. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of a understanding in terms of the range of flows and pressures.
Thank you, Kyle, for that update. And I'd like to remind everybody who's tuned into our webinar, this is an ongoing series that we are developing. Our next webinar will be August 13th, and it will be a much further deep dive look at Fume Dog, which I mentioned briefly at the top of the presentation, discussing the Fume Dog product offering, which is focused primarily on well fume extraction, sort of portable type equipment, transactional equipment, not large scale systems, but stuff that can be quickly shipped to customers. And then RTT, of course, which has a myriad of solutions relating to sort of booth and environmental booth and paint booth type configurations. And the scale of some of the projects they've worked on are really quite amazing. So I would seriously consider checking that out if you wanted to have a much more information about RTT's offering. And I think that's going to be it, guys. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today in our webinar series, and remind everybody that the information that we've shown you today will be put together and available for to be distributed after the fact. And until next time, thanks again for watching, and I hope everyone is doing well out there. Stay safe and have fun.